Welcome to the Mindset Essentials Microcast from JC White & Co. Over the next 5 minutes, we're going to talk a little bit about the definitions of mindset, how you're thinking and how you're feeling links to how you're acting and how that engages you in the world, and how you can switch out of a less resourceful mindset into a much more resourceful place, one where you end up more in control of your actions, more in control of the outcomes you experience in the world, and how you can get the best results in any given situation. So, let's get started. In other microcasts, we've talked about this idea of the drivers of performance, which is how your business results are driven by your sales activities, so how you spend your time, your capability, which is how you leverage your skills, your knowledge, your processes, and of course, your mindset. Today, our focus is on mindset. As you can see, it's the great multiplier in business results. It's the one thing you can do that has great influence over everything else that you do. So as I said in the introduction, what we know is that our thinking shapes how we act. How we act shapes the outcomes we experience in the world. And so this pattern of thinking, acting, and experiencing is one that we're all really familiar with. And when we're at our best, it's because our thinking is supporting how we're acting. Our actions are therefore supporting the outcomes we experience. And this is a virtuous circle sometimes because the outcomes we experience start telling ourselves that our thinking is working. It works virtually in a really great way for us. It can also work in a vicious cycle where sometimes our thinking isn't at its best. Therefore, we don't act as effectively as we could, and therefore the outcomes we experience aren't as great as we'd like. So let's learn a little bit more about the differences between being below the line and being above the line. So in the research we've done in this area, we know that the thinking and acting and experiencing can often operate in two different zones, a below the line zone and an above the line zone. Below the line, where our thinking and acting and experiencing are not how we'd like it to be. Perhaps we're being invaded by negative thoughts, producing poor activities that lead to poor experiences. Then of course there's above the line, where our thinking is really resourceful and energized, where we act in the most effective way and therefore get great outcomes. These are the two zones that we often experience, sometimes through the course of a day, sometimes through the course of a month, but we've all experienced both times when things are really good and times where things are really challenging. So let's dive into some of the way our brain works when we're in a below the line and an above the line state. Below the line, a large amount of the time, a part of the brain is being engaged called the amygdala. This is part of our limbic system, and it really is an area that controls our instinctive reactions to situations. Sometimes things that we don't even notice that we're doing. So they happen really quickly. We react to situations really quickly. And over time, sometimes what we see is unproductive habits forming. Habits that sometimes we're not even aware that we're doing. So let's compare below the line and that part of the brain that operates with above the line. So above the line, we engage our neocortex. This is the big part of the brain that separates us from a lot of the animal kingdom. In that part of the brain, we're generating intelligent responses to situations. It gives us the ability to analyze a situation and choose what we want to do next. And therefore, it gives us a chance to develop resourceful habits. So above the line, we get to respond to situations. Below the line, we tend to react. So there's a really big difference in terms of speed, as well as in terms of the actions we take and therefore the outcomes we experience in the world. So as I said before, sometimes we have good days and bad days, good weeks and bad weeks, or a great morning and a difficult afternoon. What we know is that happens to everybody. Poor performers, average performers, and high performers. One of the things we know about the difference between an average performer and a high performer is just how aware they are of their state, of how they're thinking and how they're feeling. They're able to spot that, maybe as it's on its way down, maybe they can even spot it when they're in a below the line state. And the difference is that they know that they want to influence the outcomes they experience in the world. They know that that's controlled by how they're acting, and therefore they do one thing that some of us don't always do, is that they implement a rapid switch to their thinking. They have the ability to switch their thinking from being below the line to being above the line. So we talked about these high performers being really aware of their state. So what are the things that they're aware of? Well, there are some behaviours we associate with being below the line. Things like avoidance, blame, or looking for excuses are clear signals of below the line thinking. If you're afraid of something, that's below the line thinking. If you're finding yourself getting stressed or thinking about situations in a negative way, or indeed just plain complaining about the way the world is, these are all signals that you're in a below the line state. If you can recognize those, then you're on your way to be able to effect the rapid switch. So I've talked about this rapid switch. So it's a rapid switch to what? It's a rapid switch to how we think or how we feel. So things like having a silver lining on difficult situations, so thinking optimistically, using difficult experiences as a chance to learn, maybe changing your perspective around things, perhaps using visualization or positive self-talk to put a different image or a different story in your mind. These are a few of the ways that people rapidly switch their thinking. You can also rapidly switch how you're feeling. So think about your physicality. Perhaps if you're in a difficult situation, it's time to change the way you sit. Maybe you should stand up, maybe you should move around. We know a lot of people are brilliant at changing their breathing to allow them to switch the way they're feeling. Maybe stretching, getting some exercise, even simple hydration are ways that we change the way we feel. Change the way you feel, change the way you think, and therefore start influencing the way you're acting and the way you experience the world. So in this video, we've kind of defined the drivers of performance, and we know just how important mindset is. We know that we have these two states, below the line, an unproductive, unresourceful kind of state, and above the line. And we know that high performers have the ability to put themselves back up above the line by effecting a rapid switch, either to the way they feel through something physical, or the way they think by changing the track that's in their mind. In other videos, you're going to learn more about those both physical and mental ways of rapidly switching your thinking. And I hope you enjoy those, just as I hope you've enjoyed this video, this Essentials of Mindset.